All right, here we go. Late night happy hour on a Thursday. And looky here, Adam Hill is back, and so is Frank. And you know what, Frank? We're going to talk a lot of hockey tonight. But, man, I was told like 2 years ago, you can't call him Ballpark Frank anymore. God damn it. You are Ballpark Frank forever. BPF is in. We'll still go with VGK Frank. That's your Twitter handle. But I love the handle of Ballpark Frank. And this was the original Ballpark Frank, by the way. There's imitators out there. The original right here, 25 plus years ago. Frank, when did you come up with the name?
Well, the funny thing is when I first got called Ballpark Frank, I wasn't a big fan of it. I was doing the old clubhouse show back when the building was when Lotus Broadcasting was on Decatur. We were all sitting around there, and the sports dude, I think he was a sports dude at that time, because he was a sports dude, the superstar sports dude, the legend of the superstar sports dude. He always changes names. And one day we were sitting around and we're live on the air, and he goes, because I was the guy that kind of sat in the background and tried to get all the stories and printed everything up for the other guys, and maybe once in a while got to say a word or two. And one day, all of a sudden, the sports dude looks and he goes, "Hey, ladies, this is Ballpark Frank. The ladies say he plumps when you cook him." And I was like, "What?" And he's like, "Yeah, it's Ballpark Frank. Ladies love him because he plumps." I'm like, "Dude, if you say that again, I'm going to punch you in the face. What are you talking about? What the hell is?" And then all of a sudden, it took on a life of its own. I'd go out someplace and they'd be like, "Hey, Ballpark. Hey, BPF. Hey, BP. Hey." And after a while, it was just like, I can't fight it anymore. It's okay, I guess I'm Ballpark Frank from this point on. And then the guy that asked me to change it and said it didn't have a hockey connotation, he's the one who continued to call me Ballpark Frank. He still calls me Ballpark to this day. So whatever you call me, whatever, Ballpark, VGK Frank, whatever, I've definitely been called worse.
I love it. I love it. All right, who's in tonight? Yep, ASU Whiskers. We got Twitter back up tonight. Second half of the show, we'll get into the Dan Snyder stuff. Trees and ODB says, "Oh, shit, BPF got a haircut." Is that true?
Oh, yeah. I got a haircut a little while ago. I actually had a haircut about a month or so ago, right when things first started opening up again, because I was walking around my complex a lot because you had nothing else to do. And so I was walking, trying to get like 5 to 7 miles in a day. And every time I come back, the tangles and everything were just terrible. So eventually I said, you know what, the hell with it. I'm tired of trying to comb this stuff out and wasting all the shampoo and all that. So I just got a wild hair, I guess, and cut all my hair off.
Love it. What's up, Adam? A full 4 hours apart. Lots of stories breaking. We barely got to anything today. It's funny. We'll get to the Redskins stuff later on because I've thought more about it. I actually told Frank 5 minutes before he came on, I'm like, I was terrible today. I'm actually getting less mature as I get older. I go like 0 to 5,000 miles an hour when I start getting really pissed off. And you knew, like during the breaks, I was so beside myself. I hate people like Dan Snyder and these buffoons who are walking around, thinking they're cool and, making comments about women. So I freaking lost it today. Tonight, I will be composed.
I doubt it. It was one of those days. Like, we were trying to get through the Washington story because it, of course, broke. Everybody's been waiting for the story for so long. It broke right before we went on the air. So we're trying to read the story as we're doing the show. And at the same time, like every time we'd catch up on one of the details, another story would break somewhere else. It was insane. And then all of a sudden, the end of the show, like the hub city's falling apart in Edmonton. Well, where did that come from? It's just a mess all day.
Let's see. A couple questions for Frank coming out of the gates. Frank, where is BPF from?
As far as physically, I'm originally from the suburbs of Chicago, grew up there, and moved out here one day. Took my Chevy Citation, had $300 in my pocket, and got behind the wheel of my car and threw everything that I could fit in the car and drove out to Vegas.
Did you like the Chevy Citation?
I did not like it. It was a car that my brother had, and I bought it off of him. But it got me. It got me out here.
What a hunk of crap that car was. I will always. I can sit here and talk about '80s cars. Frank and I lived through the '80s. The U.S. auto industry effed itself by putting mostly absolute buckets of crap on the road. Because if you look, most '80s cars aren't even around anymore. I mean, I know they're old, but most didn't last. They were just junk. The Chevy Citation was just right. It was like super square because I think it was a little smaller than like the Delta 88, but like it just everything got super boring. The engines were all small. The doors were all clunky after like a year. 80s cars for the most part sucked.
What about my sweet 88 Escort wagon?
Yeah, case in point.
Yeah, my Chevy Citation, it was the hatchback, so at least I could put everything in, kind of slam the trunk down a little bit. It was also beige, so it wasn't like it was really a good-looking car or whatever either. But again, I just needed something to get me out here. I literally had no job, no place to live or anything else, and I had $300 in my pocket and said, what the hell, it's time to try to make a move. That was 1988.
Nice. Wow. Nice. You were here before us. No Justin Watkins tonight. He's out of town, so we'll get back with him on Wednesday and Thursday. Next week, someone wanted to ask, Brady was asking what's up on the wall next to your head there. What's the frame to the side of your head? What is that? Behind you, on your left.
I have a picture of the Rat Pack up here with Dean Martin, Frank Sinatra, and all those guys shooting pool. Then right behind on top of my head, that's an autographed picture of Alice Cooper because I'm a big Alice Cooper fan. Nice. Then I have some bear stuff in different places around in that, but that doesn't have this camera angle. So, because it's funny because somebody came over the other day and they said they felt like they were at a Maury's Pizza or something like that with all my Chicago stuff.
So we got a lot of ground to cover. Sports Guy always wants seat stories, so maybe if we have time later on. Ballpark and seat stories. We'll get to those. But Adam, you mentioned the Edmonton deal. So what happened, Adam? And is the arena? I mean, it sounded like Edmonton was trying to cover up real quick, and it's all good. It's all good. But videos you're watching, the Rogers. It's not the Rogers Center.
Rogers Place.
Rogers Place. Everything is Rogers in Canada. Rogers Place got pretty jacked up. About a week plus before the hub?
I mean, enough that they had to put out a statement saying that they underwent damage and they'll reassess everything in the morning. They expect everything to be okay. But, man, after so much planning and so much waiting and so much, figuring out what the best spot to go, of course, the natural disaster hits, which, not like a earthquake or anything like that, but a big storm that really put a crimp in the plans for the NHL. But yeah, it looks like it's going to be okay, but not the sight you want to see if you're the NHL. A week before everybody starts to get there.
Yeah, I was also watching a video of that a little bit too, up on the top of the escalators there, and there was a significant amount of water in there.
Yeah, I saw that same video, Frank. I told Steve it looked like the movie Earthquake.
Yeah,
it was crazy.
Oh, that's what you're getting at. That I forgot about the. And I that's the other thing today. I was out of it during the show. I forgot about the Universal ride. Because they have the little train, like a subway, and then all of a sudden it tilts and all the water comes in. I love that.
Yeah. That's what I was talking about. Oh, yeah. It just now hit you, the image.
It did just hit me. Yeah.
That's what I was talking about.
So Frank, what's your opinion of the hub landing in Edmonton in the first place? And Gil the Thrill's kind of mocking on Edmonton, but he's saying, hey, that's what they get for not coming to Vegas. What do you think of it landing in Edmonton, and why didn't we get it?
Well, I think we didn't get it because they looked at the COVID numbers here. They were trying. It seemed like the NHL was waiting as long as possible to try to give it to Vegas, but they saw the numbers here, and they basically worked themselves out of the proposition where they figured they need to take it in a different location. It kind of makes sense that it would be Edmonton and Toronto instead of having to do with two different cities or two different countries, really, with the United States and Canada. Now they don't have to worry about quarantine and this, that, and the other stuff. But it really seemed like they wanted it to be Vegas, but the numbers kept on going up, and Vegas kind of put themselves out of the picture.
And by the way, Tucker's girlfriend now, so I don't even think there's a single guy left on the team. To answer Brady's question. Listen, if they would have come here, it could have been a real disaster. I don't know how many people have been paying attention or noticed over the last couple hours. The new reports, essentially the federal government has recommended Nevada shut down again. And Sisolak is in a very, very tough position because I know he doesn't want to shut down casinos, but I mean, now the federal government is saying, like, you got to shut down. Like, you're at red alert now. You're back to a red. Everything needs to shut down. And I know he doesn't want to, and I know people are going to be mad. Like, we're already facing the budget shortfalls and the disaster that it is, but you people couldn't wear masks. So congratulations. Like, you got your wish. We're going to have to shut down again. And I don't know that he's going to do it, but that's the recommendation now. So what would the NHL do if they were coming to a hub city that's shut down? It actually might work out better for them if that was the case. It could be on a closed strip, but that would be a kind of an ugly situation if they would have announced Las Vegas and then, Monday afternoon, Vegas shuts down.
Yeah, it would have been a really strange situation if that would have happened. And the other thing, when you're talking about coming to these cities and, everybody always talks about the players. And obviously that is the most important thing. That's what everybody's focusing on. But it's a lot more than that. It's the players, it's the coaches, it's the media, and it's also all the people in all these restaurants and everything. Like you mentioned, Adam, if they shut everything down, well, are those restaurants going to be open just to make food for the NHL players or something or other things like that? Because all of those people are also part of the picture. I know one of the things, I believe in Edmonton, one of the reasons that they got it was because they said that they would offer like 8 to 12 really good restaurants and choices in that for the players to get food from in different places there. Well, if they do have to shut things down, are these restaurants staying open just to it's like, okay, well, I can't have any customers, but those NHL guys are hungry.
By the way, Frank, I've been to Edmonton like 4 times the last couple of years. There's not 8 good restaurants in Edmonton, so that's trash. There's like 2 that are decent, 1 that's really good, and then there's some Tim Hortons that are okay.
Hey, for both of you, and especially Adam, is there going to be any real access to the players?
No.
Before they leave? Because I think, I'd love to hear about this, like how they feel right now. Ted was saying, hey, the players have, they have families, they got children, they're going to be in a bubble for a freaking long time. I mean, I'd love to hear from some of the guys and what they think about going away for as long as they have to.
Cheap plug, Steve, just released at the Review Journal is a story about this exact topic. So I didn't write it. I think Ben Goetz wrote it. But yeah, it's up there. I haven't got to read it yet either. So I don't know. But yeah, it's a really tough situation for him. And I think part of it, and I'll obviously get Frank's take on this too, but we heard from some of the people that have been out there at practice, and Ryan was talking about it with us today. I know Ben and Dave from the RJ have talked to me about it. Like, this is not like they're not messing around out there at practice. Like, this is a very, very focused team right now. And I think part of that is, listen, if you're going to take us away from our families for a couple of months, like, let's go freaking win this thing. Like, we're not there to, participate and just like, oh, let's see how this goes. Like, I think that they're in a spot where they're kind of like, all right, this sucks. Like, we better go take this seriously.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think they are taking it seriously. It's interesting because I was checking out a little bit of social media data on Twitter. I noticed Dan Duve even sent a little video with him doing some play-by-play of the practice, and you could see him going up and down the ice. There wasn't a clock on, but they were changing lines. You saw that they were getting a little bit serious out on the ice there, which they should because, even though they open up with the one exhibition game against Arizona, and then, of course, they have the round robin, they want to get in playing form. I know there's a goalie controversy right now in some people's mind, not a controversy about who's going to play. People talk about that all the time, but a goalie that hasn't been on the ice yet, which I know we're going to get to. But there's also the situation, like you said, with these guys going up there if they are going to be quarantined that long. I think there's also a work in progress because I don't think they've made a final decision. There has been some talk about maybe the teams that make it past the first round and into the playoffs and that at a certain point they might start allowing their families to come in. So maybe as teams get eliminated or something, maybe there's more rooms open and maybe it wouldn't be a full 3 months without the family. Maybe towards the end, it's like, okay, you guys are in the semifinals or something. Maybe the families are there. I think there's still some negotiating or talk going on with stuff like that. But I don't know that that's going to happen or not. But, yeah, I mean, 3 months to just be getting room service. I know Vladimir Tarasenko said today, all I need is a bed and something to eat, and I'm ready to play hockey. I don't know that that's the thought of every player in the NHL.
Can I take the other side of this? Listen, I don't have a family, so I could be wrong on this. Haven't they been locked up with their families for like 4 months? Like, it's time to go.
Oh, yeah, some of them might want to – some of them might be looking forward to getting away from them.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like, enough. Like, we've put together like 12 puzzles. I'm not playing your dumb little kids games anymore. I'm getting out of here.
Hey, I got to break in real quick. Did I just get everyone in trouble? Am I in trouble?
Oh, by showing the story?
It was like it was the lead and the headline. It's not that much of a violation.
No, you promoted it. We appreciate that.
It's a little tease.
And appreciate your subscription.
And by the way, like CJ Cards fan says, well, look at Cofield getting the RJ online subscription. I said that on the air a couple of times. My motivation was, and nothing against the guys at The Athletic, but I have it stuck in my craw, when they keep talking about being, we've always been local and we're going to put newspapers out of business. Like, no, you're not. Well, as long as I'm around, I'm going to at least throw a little change at you guys, right? So I have a subscription to the RJ, to the LA Times, which, by the way, we will get to some of the news of the LA Times and our buddy Arash a little later on. And I do have a subscription. Did it not pay off today, Adam? To the Washington Post.
Sure.
See? So I'm pro newspaper.
I redid mine today.
We will address this later. I want to know more about it before I get behind Arash fully. There's a lot of details.
Should we call him?
I think he's going to want to lay low for now. So for both of you guys, for Frank, first, what's going on with Fleury? What's the deal here? He's there, but he's not practicing. Is DeBoer trying to set us up for like 80% Leonard play?
I don't know exactly what's going on here. I know that there's been a lot of speculation. I know you guys had Ryan on the show today, Cofield and company. I heard that segment that you guys did on the show, and he brought up the point of maybe Fleury's treating it like a regular training camp or something and just sitting back and letting the other guys get some reps. I don't know that that's necessarily the case. I wouldn't really agree with that because, right now you're getting ready to go into games that mean something right out of the gate. It's not like you're going into an exhibition season. You're going into an exhibition game. We saw in the regular season that they basically went back and forth game by game by game. I don't know if he tweaked something a little bit. If there's something, I don't think there's a serious injury or anything. I guess he was behind the bench the other day, but he hasn't been on the ice yet for the 3 days. He was there before the actual training camp started when the guys were only allowed 6 at a time. So I don't think it's anything serious, but it is certainly interesting. I was talking to a friend of mine today who he brought up the point and he said, well, maybe he's been told that Leonard's going to be the guy and he's upset right now, so he doesn't want to go on the ice. I don't know the board would also, show his hand right now and tell him that, oh, by the way, Marc-Andre, we haven't even started yet. We haven't even started camp yet, but you're already the backup goaltender. I don't know what it is. My sense to it is there's something, maybe there's a little tweak or a little something because they haven't practiced in a while and they got on ice because we know he's so athletic. It seems to me that it's just a little bit cautionary, but now they're also bringing in the ECHL goalie. So they're bringing in another kid as well. So that just adds to the drama. It's going to be interesting because DeBoer said, oh, well, Marc-Andre Fleury, will you expect him out there by this weekend? Well, tomorrow's Friday.
It is.
Adam?
A lot of talk about the backup goaltender.
Yeah, there is. That is weird. And there's no chance it's actual recovery, like the very tail end of a positive COVID test?
Oh, sure. Anything's possible.
Although they did say it wasn't COVID, right? But then even if
which is the first time I thought that it was.
Yeah, me too, because this team's been so secretive the whole time since they've been here, and we know that they can't say the players because of personal reasons and that. So, but if it was COVID, I don't think he'd be behind the bench.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, I don't think he'd be around. I think there's a couple of factors. First, I think the notion that he was told he's the backup, I think is ridiculous. It's possible that he was, but I don't think he would pout and sit out. I thought, Ryan made good points about the fact that.
Can I break in for a second? That's not a real rumor being floated by anyone like in the media, right?
No.
Okay, because I just even fans, it's like, I know you like kind of having fun at him with like, hey, he's the backup goalie. If there were any fans who have now turned on Fleury to the point where they're like, he's throwing a hissy fit, like screw off, man.
No, I don't think so.
Marc-Andre Fleury should be a hero to Golden Knights fans forever.
Yeah,
that guy should never be badmouthed, even if he's playing poorly.
Oh, absolutely. He should be the first jersey retired if they're going to do that early on in the thing. And if there was ever a statue, when he first came here, we talked to him and we had mentioned to him that you're about to be the face of the franchise. And he was like, I don't really want to be the face of the franchise because he didn't have to do that with Crosby and Malkin in Pittsburgh. But he came out here and he is the face of the franchise. He's handled everything with class. He handled it with class in Pittsburgh. He was a starting goaltender who had won 2 Stanley Cups and was sitting on the bench. He only got in because Matt Murray was injured. And as soon as Murray was better, it kind of seemed like the Penguins were waiting for him to have kind of an off game to put Murray back in. If he could handle that situation in Pittsburgh, playing it back up to Murray, he can handle anything. But there's no way that I believe that he's been told that, oh, by the way, you're going to be the backup here in the playoffs. That's just stupid. Why would DeBoer even reveal something like that right now when he hasn't even seen them in practice to see how they look coming back?
Yeah, I mean, I agree with it. Like I said, I don't think that's a factor. I think more the case of, hey, he knows his body, he knows how much he should work. One of the problems they've had with him is overwork. It's not like he's just coming back right now. He's been out on the ice with his teammates the last couple of weeks with a lot of the skates that they've done. So I don't think they need to grind him out during this training camp. They've got a couple of guys that can get work in. I think that just makes sense. But I do believe at best it's a 50-50. I think if anything, it's Leonard 60-40 in terms of who the starting goaltender is. And, like I said, I think the fact that Pete DeBoer said they've got two starting goaltenders tells you everything you need to know. If Fleury was the starting goaltender, he would just say, hey, yeah, that guy that's been the face of our franchise, he is our starting goaltender. Like, he's showing him respect by saying there's two starters.
Oh, by the way, I forgot to put this comment up earlier. I don't know if Dave Shane's still in here, but your coworker, did we mention this? Leonard said that Leonard said he fought with the NHLPA to get families there the whole time. And Dave followed it up by saying eventually families can be there starting, well, with the conference finals, though. So that is a while.
It's down the road, for sure.
Do either one of you guys think that there should be special circumstances for some players like Robin Leonard? Like he gets a waiver to have his family there, or would that just open up the Pandora's box? We know that Leonard has had his struggles with mental health.
Yeah. I mean, I get the rationale, but you just can't open that Pandora's box, right?
Yeah. What do you think, Frank? Should they give Leonard a waiver?
I think it'd be difficult because then if you give Leonard a waiver, then someone else is going to say, well, how come I don't get a waiver? I miss my family. I miss my kids. I agree with Adam. I think it's got to be kind of a all or nothing type situation. Either you let guys in or you don't let them in. I know in life we want to take everything on an individual basis all the time, but this is kind of a difficult thing to do that. There's a lot of other things going on right now, and to be looking at all these different, well, I want my family there. I want my family there for the first week, and then I kind of want to get rid of them or something for a little while. Who knows what it could lead to? It's just, as much as I would like to see them all be able to have their families there, I think it's got to be one way or the other.
What do you think of this comment for next year? I think Adam's on board with this. Leonard over Fleury next year?
Yeah, but I mean, they'd have to.
How do they do that? Money-wise?
I don't think they can. I would have to look over some things. I think they're pretty much stuck. Yeah, and to this point, Robin Leonard has said he likes it here. He's grown to like the community. He would like to be here. Of course he would. I mean, it's a team where he'd have a great place to live with no state income tax with a chance to win the cup. Who wouldn't want to be the goaltender for that team? It makes a lot of sense, of course. But, Steve, remember when they signed the deal with Fleury? And I was irate.
Yep.
Like, why would you sign this contract? Why would you do it? And people were like, he's our guy. He's our goalie. Like, okay, there's a reality of sports. Like, that's not a contract you sign. And I'm not, like, I'll just say right now, I'm not sure how they would. I don't know how they'd be able to work it to get out of it, or how it would work out. I think they're kind of stuck with him. They don't have many options. If they could get rid of the contract, I guess they could. But it's a really tough spot. And listen, this is also a city, and we talked about this. Like, it's a new pro sports city. I think they've had to deal with losing a couple of Golden Knights that they loved, but they haven't had to deal with something like that. And I'm really interested to see how the city is going to deal when that type of player is gone.
Yeah, it is an interesting thing. I agree with you. When they first signed with that contract, I thought it was, I don't want to say a knee-jerk reaction, but I think it was they were trying to do the right thing, figuring they still had some salary cap space, not knowing that they were going to add guys like Stone and Pacioretty and bring in some other players in that. But that you get Leonard, you want him, like you mentioned, Adam, he wants to be out here in Vegas. He's kind of make that known to people. But I think he just wants to be wanted by anybody. He wanted to stay in New York, and then he was amazed that he's one of the finalists for the Vezina, and all of a sudden they get rid of him. Then he goes to Chicago, where he, quite frankly, is a better goaltender right now at this stage of his career for sure than Corey Crawford, who's constantly getting hurt and injured. And in fact, we might see Malcolm Subban for Chicago because Corey Crawford looks like he might not even be playing right now, and that would be kind of ironic. So then Chicago lets him go when he outperformed Crawford this season. Then he comes to Vegas, and once again, here he is. He's in a place that he likes. He's putting up incredible numbers. He's actually outplayed, if you look at just the stats, and it's a small sample size of only 3 games. He's outplayed, you could say, in some ways, Marc-Andre Fleury. And again, he's wondering, am I here after this year? So I think he would give him a bit of a discount, but he's not going to give him such a discount that they could keep him unless they get real creative by either getting rid of somebody, getting rid of some salary, or maybe signing him to a little bit longer-term contract where the first couple of years he doesn't make squat so they can fit him in and then really backload it. But I don't know if he'd want to do something like that either.
But I also think, Frank, and you mentioned all the stops that he's been on. A couple of things on that. One, we have a awful habit of really attaching a stigma to guys that talk about mental illness. And I think teams have been hesitant to trust him, even though he is a legit number 1 goaltender. I think teams have been hesitant to be like, yeah, you're our guy. And I think that's what he wants. I mean, kind of we haven't known him for long here. Like everything shut down right after he got here. But the couple of conversations that I was a part of with him, like, I think he, as you said, he wants to be wanted. Like,
for
he
sure.
wants, it's not, and this is going to sound bad because everybody wants competition. I think what he wants is for somebody to sign him and be like, hey, you are our guy. Like, we trust you. We're, not putting our franchise in your hands, but like, we're going to ride you. You're going to be our goaltender. Like, we want you to be that guy. And everywhere he goes, there's competition. And there's, hey, maybe you got to beat out this guy. Every athlete is fine with competition, but at some point, I think you want to be acknowledged that you are that guy. And, if he's back in Vegas and Fleury's here, if they somehow work that out, which would be very difficult to do, you'd have to cut corners elsewhere. Like, it's, again, another spot where you've got a guy that not only you have to compete with, but is so beloved. And for good reason. I'm not saying Marc-Andre Fleury shouldn't be beloved. He, of course, should. He's earned every single bit of that through his play and through his character. The guy's been nothing but amazing here. But there is a reality of sports, and it comes time where sometimes you get beat out, even if you're a great person.
Absolutely. And when you look at Marc-Andre Fleury, like you said, he's loved, he's earned everything. And when you hear somebody say that, well, we have 2 number 1 goalies, which is what the Boer said, and right now I think it's rightfully so, because I'm not sure if he knows exactly what he's going to do. But I agree with you. Even if it's a real good and you want a strong goalie tandem, you certainly want that. Arizona has it, the team that they're playing in the exhibition. Hell, right now in New York, the Rangers have 3 goalies that they're trying to figure out what to do run. And one of those is also a Hall of Famer in Henrik Lundqvist. He makes the most money, but Shesterkin and Georgiev are, they're younger. They could get them cheaper. And some people think that both of them are better right now than King Henrik is. So, but I think even if you do have, while you want that competition and you want it to be, okay, 2 good goalies and a really good tandem, you still want to kind of like be in Boston where Tuukka Rask is the guy and then you have a good backup. I think Robin Leonard would love to be someplace where he's the guy, but he gets 60 to 70% of the starts and he's still the one. But if he needs a night off or if something happens, you can bring somebody else in. But yeah, to say that it's identical, equal, and it's 50-50, I don't think that's what Leonard's looking for. And with what he's shown the last couple of years, I don't think he deserves to be in that situation.
Some questions in the chat room about the expansion draft. I'm sure you guys can answer this rapid fire.
Vegas is exempt though. They could work some deals.
Yep. I
mean, they could try to work some deals out and get somebody to take them and get drafted, perhaps, if that's what they wanted to do. It'd be very, very weird for him to be, the goaltender for another expansion team.
Yeah, I mean, again, like Adam said, they would have to do some trade or something like that because Vegas is the one team that doesn't lose a pick.
Very important question earlier from Brady. I think I know the answer, but I agree with Brady. There could be some bubble violations. Brady was asking, why is there no talk about the need for whores in the NHL bubble like the NBA? Well, the most obvious.
You know the answer.
Well, there's a white league versus an African American league, but yeah, the other part of it is the guy who really stirred the pot on that whole thing was Stephen A. Smith. So where is the ESPN level talk show where someone would make a joke about needing players to get laid? Like, is there an NHL guy who would do that? Is there is there somewhere on TSN where they're like, hey, these guys, they're going to need ladies.
It's got to be the Spit and Chicklets podcast.
Yeah, it's a good point. Do we need to serve that purpose and address this topic? Adam, will the bubble be burst? Will there be some hockey players, especially in Edmonton, who are like, I got to get my dick wet. Like, let's go. And here's the thing: I
sure.
got you as an expert who goes on the road. What is the Edmonton scene like for ladies, especially those who are paid? And I'm not saying hookers, but strip clubs. Do we know about the strip club scene in Edmonton? I punched up one of my favorite sites.
I have some knowledge. Steve.
Red Light Canada. And I apologize for the bear rumps. This show does not go blue very often. Let's
All
see.
the time.
Chez Pierre Cabaret, Diamond's Gentlemen's Club, Eden Exotic Entertainment, Pinky's. I like that name, but it says it's closed. Although, what a place though. It's on Wayne Gretzky Drive. And then I like this one. I don't. Anytime you get a strip club that's named Saint, that's awesome. St. Pete's Exotic Bar. Have you been to any of them?
Yes.
Yeah.
And how is the quality?
Canada strip clubs are amazing, by the way.
That's what I've heard.
I've heard that too. Yep.
Yeah. They're
I'll be
fantastic.
honest. I didn't think Montreal was great, but maybe I didn't hit the right spots.
I thought I went to a place called Shade.
Oh, I forgot. I actually went to Windsor for the Detroit Super Bowl. You know what? There was we did a show from Cheetah, not Cheetahs, Cheetah. It was pretty good.
Yeah. No, the Canada scene is great, no question about it. I don't know that's what would go on, but also hockey players in Canada don't need to have any extra help. I mean, they're going to be popular.
Ted, I'm not sure where you live, but
they're pro athletes, bro.
No, I just no. And nobody gets laid in strip clubs. I'm not saying that people are having sex in clubs, although that happens. But you could probably make some connects and have them do some outside work.
Yeah, there's definitely.
I've heard it's done, Frank.
Yeah, there's definitely stuff going on there, and it might not be in the club, but there's hotel rooms back with jacuzzis and other things in, and we hear those stories all the time about so-and-so had the jacuzzi filled with himself and 5 other women or something like that. We know he's happened in the UFC. Chuck Liddell has bragged about doing stuff like that back when he was winning championships. It definitely happens in the sports out there. And I actually heard, of all the people, I heard Amber Dixon actually bring this up on Channel 3 News, like in her rant last week or something like that. She mentioned
it was very aggressively sexual.
Yeah. So
yeah, no question.
But what was
Amber's rant?
Yeah, I mean, she basically came right up and said, "Hey, you know how these guys are young guys, they're young millionaires and that, and they're going to be locked up for 3 months. How are we going to keep the women out?"
Really?
Oh yeah, she was.
Go look for a video here.
It should be on her Twitter. I think I watched it from there. If you want to find it, and yeah, I think. But going back to your asking why it has not been mentioned, it clearly is the racial breakdown.
Good for her.
Like there's absolutely a. It's almost like the NBA players are treated like animals that just can't control themselves. And the NHL players are just fine athletes that are going to be just worried about winning the Stanley Cup. It's so gross how the leagues are portrayed, honestly.
Well,
but yeah, that's what it is.
And don't you think that overall, too, that everybody tries to portray the NHL like all these guys are Boy Scouts and nobody ever does anything wrong? I mean, you guys know I was a Blackhawk fan before the Golden Knights existed. I used to watch hockey and all that. Patrick Kane, a lot of people think is not a very good person off the ice. He's done some stuff that has been very questionable in the past.
Sure has.
But he kind of, people mention it and then they kind of shrug their shoulders and go, well, he was a young guy. He's really popular, this, that, the other.
It was like 3 years ago.
Yeah, and well, there was the incident in the cab. There was the incident with the co-op up in Wisconsin. There's been multiple incidents, and then there was the alleged rape that I really don't think did happen in Buffalo because it looks like it didn't. But
first of all, it was in Hamburg.
Yeah,
it was in Hamburg, which is the town that my family is all from, and I do think it happened. I think the Chicago media came in and completely cleaned it up and defamed a lot of the witnesses from the case. And tried to make it look like, it was just some small town people in Western New York making these accusations. There was a lot there. Actually, that's a case that I've studied quite a bit. It's interesting. I'm not saying he's guilty or he did it, whatever. But I think there was a lot of media. That's actually a case I use talking to people about when people ask, why is it a problem if media is fans? And especially here in Vegas, when we're criticizing a lot of the media here for wearing VGK jerseys and openly supporting the team as part of the media. And they're like, well, what's the problem? And I say the Patrick Kane case is the problem, because investigating an alleged rape at Patrick Kane's house in Hamburg, New York, trying to figure out what was happening. The media was trying to get the details, trying to keep everything quiet. And the Chicago media, and it was first a blogger from Chicago, he came in and like made up a bunch of stuff about the accuser. And the Chicago media jumps on and they're like, he's innocent. What? This is a witch hunt. And like, it never really got investigated the way it should, because the media and fans that they blew up the whole thing. That's why fans should not be media members. And that's why you shouldn't trust anybody that like, is if you ever see a media person like wearing a VGK hat or like wearing a jersey, it's don't trust them on anything. Like, again, you can listen to them and they can have opinions and you can enjoy it. But like, if you're actually trying to get like active information, that's why it's a problem, because the Patrick Kane case.
Yeah, I don't know if you guys remember or not, but when the NHL Awards were here, I think it was a couple years or maybe 3 years back, when Patrick Kane and Jonathan Toews were supposed to be on the cover of the EA Sports, the new EA Sports, and all of a sudden they stepped up on the platform, and it was Jonathan Toews by himself, and Kane wasn't there. And even Toews kind of made a little joke, and he said, well, yeah, I'm out here because, some people can handle Vegas and some people can't. So even he was poking a little bit of fun at Kane at the awards show.
That's amazing. Yeah, I mean, not the greatest guy, but and he has that reputation, and people know about it. But I just feel like the leagues are portrayed very, very differently when they're all just professional athletes. They're all pretty much the same.
Yeah, for sure. They're young guys with a lot of money and a lot of testosterone.
Sorry, did you find that clip, Steve? I thought you were getting ready to play it.
No.
Oh, okay.
We don't need to watch it. I got your point. I was letting you guys finish. Speaking of Edmonton, what's your reaction to the Eskimos of the CFL no longer being the Eskimos? Do you know why an Eskimo reference would be offensive? Have you looked into it? Because generally when things are canceled, I will try to look it up. I notice a lot of people on Twitter immediately are like, bullshit, cancel culture. Like, you may want to read up on it, why they're making the decision, why some people think it's offensive. Have you guys heard anything?
I know. Go ahead.
I was just going to – I haven't heard too much specifically about that, but I'm not completely surprised because I just saw a story a week or two ago that they're going to change the name of Eskimo Pies. So, I mean, there's something, obviously, somebody's been upset about the name Eskimos before, and so I think it's just this culture where the dominoes keep on falling one after another, and somebody else throws something out there, and everybody wants to be politically correct. And I'm not saying that there's not a good reason, because I don't know exactly what the reason is, but right now, if you want something changed, or if you have a beef with anything or any name or something, now's the time to throw it out there, because strike while the iron's hot, as they say.
I know that this has been a topic several times before, and they just announced a few months ago that they weren't going to change the name, that they were going to keep it, and it was kind of a pretty big story up there, not really much here in America, because nobody really cares about the CFL. But now that we're going through a lot of these name changes, it's kind of on the radar a little bit. I thought I remembered when they decided to keep the name that a lot of the First Nations groups in Canada were happy. I think that they kind of were on board of keeping it. There certainly is a lobby to change it and to get rid of it. And as you said, Eskimo Pie no longer here. So I know that Steve just put up the definition. I thought that it meant like it translates to like eater of raw flesh or something. That's what Eskimo translates to.
Seen fish eater.
Yeah. So I don't know. Again, I tend to take all of these case by case and try to listen to what both sides say and what how is it offensive, why is it offensive, and then the other side can make their case about why it's not and why it should remain. And then I think you can base every decision on a case by case basis. It doesn't have to be like a blanket thing like all Native American names are offensive. Like I don't know if that's true. I want to hear every single case.
Yeah, we were just talking before about taking things on an individual case with Robin Leonard and his family and that kind of stuff. In this situation, I do think you have to take things on a case by case type basis and look into it a little bit more. And again, with the Eskimos, I know Adam just said some people think all Native American names are offensive or whatever. Well, we know that the Florida State Seminoles in college, and usually the college teams are quicker to change than professional teams. We know that they work with the Seminole tribe and that they do a lot of things there. And I certainly haven't heard anything about them changing their names out there. So I think there are instances where they do show things where it is a thing of respect and you can work together with them. And then in other cases, maybe you have to change. I know some people say if it offends one person, then it's got to change. Well, then we're not going to have names of anything out there because people get offended by a lot of stuff these days.
Doesn't Florida State pay the Seminole tribe like a lot of money?
Yes.
Yeah. And that's one of the reasons they have a nice working relationship.
Yeah, exactly. Every case is different.
Along the lines of what Frank was just saying, I see people kind of being smartasses on different names that we should cancel. So this guy was saying that all the following have to change: the Cleveland Indians, the Atlanta Braves, the San Diego Padres, interesting, Pittsburgh Pirates, the Yankees, KC Chiefs, Cleveland Browns, Minnesota Vikings, Cowboys, Niners, Bucks, Blackhawks, all politically incorrect. Frank, you have a lot of Blackhawks knowledge. You're a Blackhawks fan. Blackhawks is offensive?
It's funny because a lot of people have talked about the Blackhawks being offensive for a long, long time. And I get it because it is a Native American tribe and they have the big Indian head on the crest and the cross tomahawks on the shoulder. I mean, hell, back when I lived in Chicago, we went to Gunzo Sporting Goods because the original story was that Mr. Gunzo hand sewed every jersey that the team actually wore. So that was the place to go if you wanted a jersey made. It cost a little more, but you got that nostalgia part of it. But the Blackhawks were actually founded in 1926 by Fred McLaughlin, and he named the team after the 86th Infantry Division, which was the Blackhawk Division. There was Chief Blackhawk who actually fought against the United States in the War of 1812 with the British because he didn't like the way that Indians were being treated in that. But then he became a celebrity. He talked about a lot of Native American pride and different things, and they named this division after him. So the Blackhawks were literally named after the infantry that the original owner of the team fought in World War I and died beside these guys with. And so he paid tribute to him. And because of that reason, he said he's never changing the name. They've also worked along with the American Indian Center up until last year. They had a working relationship. They were giving a lot of money to the Native American the American Indian Center. But the Indian Center, after last year, they actually just stopped the partnership that they had a little bit because there were some people giving them a little bit of flack saying that it was a offensive name too. So they say they're going to look for another organization to work with. But at this time, they're talking about they are not going to change it at all. But who knows what happens down the road a little bit. But at least up till now, they're trying to educate people and say that it's a respect for the Native American tribe. It's also respect for an American hero, the 86th Infantry Division. And exactly what happens, I don't know down the road because these are different times and we see a lot of political things. I guess maybe if, the United Center said that they weren't going to let them play in their building anymore, like FedEx gave the, Washington football team some problems. Money talks, but I do think that you need to look at individual things. And if you're working in conjunction with somebody and trying to educate people about why it's a good thing instead of a respectful thing, not everything is offensive. Sometimes people need to do a little bit of homework.
Yeah, I think, to me, Redskins was obvious. Redskins is just gross. That's an awful name and an awful way to name your team, and everything about it was terrible.
And the original song of the Redskins had real derogatory, some lyrics in that too about Native Americans.
Yeah, of course it did. And again, case by case, Redskins, awful. Definitely change it. When you name teams after tribes or after, as you said, Chiefs or Braves, that's different to me. It's completely different. It's not the same at all. And guys, as a member of the Ottawa tribe with the great Chief Pontiac, I think I can speak on this. No, I'm kidding. I'm 164th. I don't think it really counts. But yeah,
I never heard that before.
Yeah, Ottawa tribe, Chief Pontiac. He was our great hero. Okay. But yeah, I feel like it's different to name it after a tribe or as you said, Chiefs or Braves. To celebrate the culture is completely different than the derogatory Redskins. And when you're trying to say like, well, if you can't be Redskins, you can't be Chiefs. Fuck you. That's ridiculous. It's so stupid. It's a childish argument.
McKinnell chimed in, said, good Blackhawks history lesson. I knew it was going to be good. JBT's in. He said, the Padres are offensive. Don't shove religion down my throat. Is there any chance of that?
No. John, check your email, by the way.
When you go to a Padre game, does it all of a sudden make you all of a sudden like see the light and want to go to church afterwards or something like that? I've never been down to Petco and going, you know what? I need religion in my life.
Yeah, I don't go to church after Padres game.
Yeah, it's a good point. I love the Padres, the actual Padre himself, the mascot. I think it's
awesome. I wish he was angrier.
Yeah.
Like if he was angry, it'd be so cool. Especially because they've lost for so long. You know he's pissed. He always looks happy in the logo.
Yeah, he does. He's swinging the bat, and it looks like he just missed the pitch, but he's still got a big smile on his face.
Yeah, like they should make him like all dejected, like walking back to the dugout, like with his head down.
Smashing the bat over his knee or something.
Yeah, he's hitting 187. It's August.
He's about to be sent down to AAA.
Yeah, leaving. You have to leave San Diego. What a nightmare! I think the AAA team for a while was El Paso. I don't know where it is now. That'd be a terrible send down. Go from the greatest city in the world to El Paso.
Oh yeah.
You know, it's funny too how some places like people get offended by the mascots and that kind of stuff, and other ones embrace it. Like at Notre Dame, the Fighting Irish. Their emblem is basically it's literally a drunk little leprechaun guy who's got his fist up and he wants to fight everybody. But they don't get offended by that. They embrace that and go, yeah, that's us.
Bad news. It's not the Fighting Irish anymore.
Okay.
They don't like that. It's only Irish.
Okay, but I mean, a lot of people still call it the Fighting Irish.
I believe me, I know. I love it.
Just like Steve said, I'm always going to be Ballpark Frankie. You guys, I'm too old to not have them to be the Fighting Irish anymore in my world.
Just the Irish. By the way, it is El Paso. That was some good AAA knowledge for me. Can you imagine? You're like, bad news. You're getting sent down. You're leaving San Diego. Enjoy El Paso. 2 border towns. I guess they have that in common.
Mm. All right, Frank, we're going to let you go in a couple minutes, so we're going to indoctrinate you before you get out of here in the way of the Karen. We have Karen videos like almost every night. Tonight, we've got illegal parking Karen. This is the hilarious thing about this video. The lady, I guess, is concerned that there are some black folks in her neighborhood who are having a yard sale. And all of a sudden, and JVT pointed this out, so thank you, John. All of a sudden, it becomes a camera showdown, a phone showdown. Everyone's just following each other with the goddamn phones. But you got to listen to what this lady's saying. And also check out where the car is. Like, lady, you're the nuisance to the neighborhood. It's a little bit low, so I'm going to try to crank it.
This is an honest business. This is nobody bothering you. It's an honest business. It's not. All this is residential, and we're allowed to have yard sales. And we're allowed to have yard sales in residential areas.
My city council.
That's all right. I already talked to him, and that's why I got my license with the city council. So I already talked to him, and I pay my taxes.
No, get off the corner before we call the police.
And I pay my taxes. So I know I ain't doing that wrong. They already came.
Get away from here.
You like that? This is my neighborhood. Like the ownership of the neighborhood. Shut up. Shut up.
The aggressive phone.
I know. Get out of the way. I gotta clear my shot.
Yeah,
Get away from here. Get away from here.
They were already here.
Okay, goodbye.
Stay right here.
Look where a car's parked.
Stay right here.
No, you are harassing us.
Yeah.
Because I know you have something more.
What is this?
Hey.
Out here with a yard sale. This is not my.
And we got your license plate.
This has nothing to do about destroying the city.
By the way, everybody had this lady's information about where she lives and everything within like 5 minutes, which is great. I don't think I noticed it last time because I was laughing too hard. I think she's taking photos.
Like, yeah, it looked like it.
Yeah, she's not taking. She's taking photos. Thanks, Karen. So ridiculous.
Well, like you said, Steve, with where her car is, she's parked in the street. She just stopped in the middle of the street. And I like how she tells them to get off the corner because it's her neighborhood as she's standing in the street playing in traffic.
And by the way, mask up, ma'am. There's no good hanging around your neck.
Well, she had to get her point. She had to get her point across.
Yeah, thanks, Brady. Yeah. So dumb.
I know.
Yes, agreed.
We all have a bad name. Because there's
white people ruin everything.
She's off her meds.
Yeah, I think that's probably true. Like, what? Who? Yeah, that's a good point, John. Clearly, she's taking a photo and her hands all moving around. What is she going to try to prove? She's gonna show them, like, see, look, they were having a yard sale. Like, yeah, they're in that. They're taking videos saying they're having a yard sale.
Hey, these people are at their own house with a yard sale and a permit for it. I'm going to stand in the street and take pictures of them. Arrest them. It's my neighborhood.
To be fair, I don't think that was Las Vegas.
It was California because like within a couple of minutes they had her name and she was somewhere in California. So,
but just to respond to, I think Treason saying that's why the NHL is in here.
No, I know. Yeah. He was saying we lost the NHL because of Vegas Karens. Believe me, we have them. I've never heard this one before. The cul-de-sac is an interesting world. I don't really know how to police the cul-de-sac because most cul-de-sacs do turn into a crazy parking lot. Yeah. So what do you do? Do you go Karen on them? What do you do?
You don't move into one.
I avoid them.
That's a good point. If you don't want to be in the belly of the beast, the cul-de-sac, then don't live there.
It always is weird if you get like invited to a party at like a cul-de-sac or something, and you like the circle. Like who does that belong to? Because usually you've got like a house going out each way on each corner, but like the middle there's no house. So usually the middle of that circle is like a perfect spot to park, not in front of anybody's driveway. But I don't know if you're allowed to do that.
It's a disaster.
Total disaster. We go to a Christmas party every year, Steve, at a friend of ours' house. A huge Christmas party in a cul-de-sac. That's just chaos. It's chaos out there.
Is that where we get the cookies?
Yeah.
Place? Oh, it's nuts.
But it's total chaos.
But there's no way they have a Karen in there in the cul-de-sac. There's no cul-de-sac Karen, which, by the way, we need a cul-de-sac Karen video. There's no way there's a Karen around those folks. They must go around and tell everyone, hey, tonight's a Christmas party or holiday party. Come over if you want, but we are going to make this into a nightmare. We're going to park everywhere, so just beware.
I hope so. They need to. It's a mess.
Yeah, Connor says it's nuts. Those women live in my neighborhood, all in everybody's business. Yep. Yeah, I believe it. Summerlin is the worst. Karen's on every block. I believe it. All right, Frank. Well, I hope you had a good time. We're gonna cover a couple more topics. We appreciate you coming in, and it's cool to see you. I hope you're doing well. Should we follow up with one question from earlier, or do we save it? Do you want to tell a seat story down the road next time you're on, or do you have a good seat story?
Let's save it for next time on, so I can actually try to think of a decent whatever. Unless you want real quick the one where I walked out of the show one time on him because he was just rubbing me the wrong way, and I basically was either not. It was basically okay. Well, at the time he had told me all the time because I did shows with Seat from way back. I actually knew him before I worked at Lotus Broadcasting at a high school basketball game at Valley High School when I first moved out here. Like in I originally moved out here in 1988, but then I hooked up with him again and met him in like 91 or 92. And so we would do basketball games, and I got a job at the radio station and it started working there. And then over the years, we were doing shows together. We did the Clubhouse show and then a couple of other things. And one day, the girl that I was living with at the time, her and I were having a little bit of problems here and there. And, like you do in relationships sometimes. And basically, I came in and I said, look, dude, whatever, just don't mention anything about my relationship today. I'm just not into it. So, of course, he goes on and he thinks, well, this is good radio. So he starts bringing it up, and he brought it up like 2 or 3 times. And I'm like, dude, just shut the hell up right now.
Yep.
And so he kept on twisting the knife. And finally I got up when we were on the air. There wasn't the video and that kind of stuff like there is someday on some shows and that. And I said, I got 2 choices right now. I can either walk out on the middle of this show. Or I'm going to go over there and knock your ass out because you're really pissing me off and I'm sick of you. And he kind of got up and backed up a little bit. And he was like, whoa. And then I was just like, that's it, I'm done. And I picked up my headphones and I just left the studio. I got called into the office and told that I did something wrong. And that if anybody was going to get in trouble for to lose their job or whatever, that it was going to be me because and I'm like, wait, we talked about this. There's things that he doesn't want me to bring up, and I show respect for him. I specifically asked him not to do this. He agreed to it and then immediately kept on doing it on the air over and over and over again. But still, I was the one that got in trouble and was told that, well, you better not do that again. And I'm like, it was either walk off the show or literally knock him out in the studio. And you're telling me I did the wrong thing by leaving the show? I'll remember that for next time.
That's a good one. I'm glad you told us. It's how like every seat story ends too.
There's a lot of them.
Yeah.
Damn.
It's good. People were enjoying that. The commenters were into that one.
By the way, I was not the first person to walk off a show with seat. Dave Koken did it a couple times, once on a remote.
Has anybody
at the old Vacation Village?
Oh, that was my spot. So my spot. Has anybody that's done a show with them not walked off?
Well, I don't know. I know there's been if they haven't, they've certainly wanted to.
Oh, this is a whole show dedicated to that would get tough. I think we've all got them.
Yeah, absolutely.
We'll close on this because I don't want to pile on seat. Ted says you should have brought up stuff that he didn't want you to talk about. What was the number one thing that seat would not want you to mention on the air? Do you remember?
Absolutely, without a doubt. And I still won't mention it because I still try to show respect and be a man of my word.
Real name?
His real name.
I knew it.
Yep.
Yeah.
Real name.
I do know it, but I will not say it.
So do I.
And number two, I don't know what it was with him, but he was like George Hamilton.
Age.
Don't mention his age. Don't. He used to get so mad if you mentioned how old he was. I don't know what game he was playing, what chicks were listening. We told he was 35, but man, see, we get all worked up if you mentioned how old he was.
I remember one time I mentioned that somebody said it was my birthday and they wished me a happy birthday and they said how old and I said my age and he's like, why would you do that? Paul, you can't ever do that. Don't ever tell him. It's like, why? It's not going to change anything. It's a number. Yeah, and because you're right, he was always upset because he's like, well, if you're that old, then they're going to think that I'm old too. And I'm like, dude, you're older than me. No, don't tell anybody that. Don't tell anybody that.
Dude, people are sensitive about it. You know, I had a co-host in the past who's probably 6 months younger than I am, and I used to bust on myself as old all the time, and he would partake in busting me for being old. And like one time, I was like, hey, you're kind of old, and he was like, what? I'm like, wait a second, I thought we were like this was the material. Nope.
Yeah, I mean, I don't look at it as something that I'm offended by. I look at it as something I'm amazed that I'm still here.
It's a good way to look at it.
There you go. All right, Frank, we'll get you on soon, okay, buddy?
Sounds good. Thanks a lot. I've really enjoyed it. Love listening to the show on ESPN, and also now that I finally have internet and I've joined the 21st century, as some of my friends have told me, I'll be checking out more of these the happy hours because you guys do a great job.
Thanks, Frank. We'll see you, buddy.
Great too. We'll see you soon.
Thanks,
man.
Yeah. To Jim Gemma's point, there's a lot of like we tell stories about Lotus, and they really go back mostly to like. I mean, I've been there and around the building since 2004, but most of the stories we tell are like 2008 on. There's a lot of stories in the old building.
Oh yeah,
that's a place with a lot of history. There's a lot of crazy people over the years.
I don't know how that place didn't burn down. By the way, not because of the crazy. Like there's wires everywhere, and it's a tiny building.
And the old setup.
Yeah,
really,
just equipment and wires all over the place. It was nuts.
All right, I got a game plan here. I want to stay
believable.
Well, let's do this real quick on the Redskins. So you've had 4 hours. You read the story. Like I said earlier, I was so mad. I just thought about workplaces and how they're buffoons, like the guys who are working in the Reds, for the Redskins. And I was talking to you guys during the break, you and Jared, and I'm like, why aren't we to the point where when someone says something stupid to women or makes sexual jokes that you're like, hey, dude, shut the fuck up. Like, what is wrong with you? This
People are
works
scared for their jobs, man.
You actually get laid talking to women like this? What kind of women are you with that are like, ooh, he said he wants to touch my ass? Like, I don't even understand how this is tolerated by normal guys. Like, this should be approved bullying in the workplace. If pipsqueaks like Dan Snyder are mocking on someone else for being a cheerleader in college, it's like, hey, little guy, shut the fuck up. Or who was this guy, Santos, who it was just like comment after comment after comment. He got blown out last week. Like, bro, seriously, do you have any game? What real woman talks to you? You are pathetic. What a loser. That's what needs to and that's what will change workplaces more than anything is other guys stepping up and going, you're a dork, right? And the other part of it is, and I ranted about this on the air today, hey, dickhead, you're ruining it for me. Like, I'm not walking around the office, trying to get office trim. But what I do want to have is a working relationship with women and not feel like I got to walk on eggshells because you're harassing them. So now they're afraid of all of us. So I got to tell you, dudes need to step up and start curtailing this crap with, the idiots who are still doing this at workplaces. Cut it out. Cut it out. Tell them, cut it out. I'm going to belt you in the mouth if you keep talking like that, and you're a loser. That's it.
People are scared to lose their jobs, Steve. Like that, it's all. I mean, that's great, and I would agree if you're like in a bar or something. But people are scared to lose their job.
They're afraid with someone on their level to say to them, "Cut it out." You're embarrassing yourself.
No, but we know. Okay, if we're speaking of the Redskins organization in particular, because a lot of companies are set up in a similar way. Like, yeah, the higher ups there are participating in all this kind of, behavior and all this, disgusting nonsense that they're doing. Then, yeah, if you're the guy that's, a middle manager that's like, hey, I'm not going to tolerate this anymore. Then the guys above you are like, yeah, we are, and get the hell out. You're a problem. You're causing the problems by calling out other people's behavior. That's just that's the toxicity of the corporate structure that we have, that people are scared to lose their job. They just are. And I think it not only causes guys to not speak out and not say the right things, but also to start participating. Because now there's peer pressure to act like that, so you don't look like the guy that's trying to save everyone. Like, now you have to start acting like that. And I think people feel pressure to do that. I think that's a big part of it.
And the worst part of it is for women, because you're caught in this position where if you raise a ruckus in bad companies, like at Lotus Broadcasting, I think we have a pretty good company, and I think we've cleared out the building of misogynist idiots, right? But it's taken time. There's been communication. There's actually an HR department to report to, that was one of the amazing things in the Redskins story. The Washington story on the Washington Post today, like the one lady's like, there's no HR department. There's not even anywhere you can go to complain about things and, levy your concerns. But what happens, I think, is then you've got a workplace that women have been dealing with it. Then new women come in and they're like, wait, I don't want to deal with this. But the guys are already conditioned to harassing and speaking to women like idiots. So then when the new women come in, they're like, yeah, they're fair game, man. The ladies who are here, they're cool with it. Aren't you cool with it? And it's like, no, not all women are cool with it. Huh? Read the room.
It goes to another level too. So part of the story, if you go all the way to the end, which I don't know how many people actually did, but like one of the last paragraphs is there was a lawyer there who seemed to be a decent guy, and he would pull some of the women aside and be like, hey, like, this is not right. Like, I see how you're being treated. This sucks. This is not how it should be. But what power does he have to do anything about it? He's just trying to be like that guy. And it didn't say this. This is my own thing. I will guarantee, I would bet any amount you want to bet on this, that guy would pull women aside and be like, hey, I don't like how you're being treated. Like, I just know that I understand. If you need to talk about it, whatever. And the other guys there were like, oh, that's that guy's move. His move is to be the good guy that's saying like, hey, you shouldn't be treated like this. And that's what happened. And then the other part where you're saying like, guys really think this is going to work. The problem is that sometimes it does, because these guys that are in these powerful positions speak like that, treat women like that, and then the women feel pressure to actually go through and actually sleep with dudes to get, to not be so scared and to not be an outcast, and they think that they have to do that to help their position, and then guys are like, well, this works, so I'm gonna keep doing it. So the whole thing about like, guys really think this works? Yeah, it shouldn't. It's not right. It's disgusting, and it puts women in a terrible position. But on some levels, it does work, because you put enough pressure on females to think that that's what they have to do to keep their job. It's going to work sometimes.
And I know these are uncomfortable conversations for guys. Like our chat room got like real quiet, real quiet, right? We got it's not easy. It's not easy for the guys to step up, but you got to do it. I mean, if you know, I hope more companies are becoming progressive. Like I said, the biggest thing for me is I want to work in an environment where everyone's comfortable, you know, in speaking with each other, and that old school. And believe me, sports radio's got the issue. Yeah, I mean, you saw it. Hell, one of the guys who walked this morning is Larry Michael. The guy is a legend of the broadcast game. He's been around for like 40 years. I didn't get to talk to some friends about him today, but I guarantee you it's going to be a mix of like, oh, I never saw it coming. And there'll be a few that knew Larry Michael or know him, and they're like, he was always kind of a fucking jerk off. You know?
Makes sense. Yeah, of course.
But that stuff needs to be snuffed out. You know?
Yeah.
Because again, it ruins things. So you see more and more women. You know, you're a beat reporter. You see more and more women getting into that, and I wonder what women like, Cassie, right? Cassie's in her 20s. I hope it's a lot better for her the next 30 years than it was for, you know, if you want to go back, you know, Christine Brennan or Leslie Visser. Or I'm trying to think of some of the other women who have been around for a while. You know, Andrea Kremer, who's on with us every once in a while. Shouldn't be that way, you know? It shouldn't be that way. So, and the biggest thing to think about is, if that were your daughter, that were your wife, and your wife's got to go and listen to these assholes, Larry Michael and the Santos guy, you know, talk about their ass and, you know, they real or fake. If I was single, would you like, why are we talking about this?
And the real or fake that you're referring to was a particular instance. I mean, I'm sure it's a lot of instances, but there was, if you read the text messages from, I can't remember which executive it was, to one of the females, he kept like insinuating something, and he was like, "Oh, don't worry, it's an inside joke." And she'd be like, "Well, I don't like to be left out of jokes in my workplace. Like, what are you talking about?" He's like, "Well, it's kind of about you. It's an inside joke." And then she's like, "Well, I would like to know because it's not fair that you guys are making jokes about me." And he's like, "Well, you asked, so it's, we wonder if real or fake." And then she's like in this position of like, not like, okay, I really just wanted to know what the hell you were saying about me, but now I'm in this spot where you could make the claim of like, I asked to know what you were talking about. Like it's this weird dynamic of the conversations that's just gross and off-putting. But it's also like, the females are often in a position of like, how do I handle it? If, again, a lot of them said, hey, listen, the first time this happened, if I said, I'm the third day on the job, whatever, I'm a marketing worker for the Redskins, and the, director of football operations or whatever is like, hitting on me or saying whatever, and I'm like, yeah, I'm not comfortable with that, I'm fired the next day. So I have to choose between playing along or having a new job. Like, should it be like that? No. But that's the reality of the situation for a lot of people, or at least that's the perceived reality of, I don't have anywhere to go. I don't have anywhere to turn. It seems like everyone around here is like this. Who would I talk to?
Yeah, John's right. We've talked about this in the past. He says, I think I heard on the show the higher ups at the LBC are women. That's probably a good thing. I'm not saying it's a good thing or a bad thing. I'm not saying they're more qualified than guys, or less qualified. I like the group who's running the place right now. I've now worked for two different program directors who were females, and I thought they both did a pretty good job. And now, our big boss is a female. A lot of the admin people who have power are females. Doesn't bother me. There's in my case, there's no white male fragility. I find our lead boss about as easy as any higher up that we've had to talk to. She's got thick skin. I'm a little aggressive, in terms of bitching and moaning in different spots. She likes it because the whole thing is she's like, hey, you know what? I know you care. I know you want to make us better. I know you want to get better. So there's no problems. But I think there are guys who, when they see women rise up the ranks, so somehow they look at it and they're like, oh, I didn't make it there. And then they feel fragile. It's like, hey, I don't want to run the place. You deal with all those problems. I just want to do a show. And if I do something stupid, right, or I have an idea, I just want you to have my back when it comes to me doing my job. I'm rooting for you. You do what you have to do, But I think there are guys out there who are like, women. Not going to be any, as Jimmy the Greek would say. I guess he was talking about African Americans, but not going to be any room for the men at the workplace. There's room for us, guys. We're not going to get snuffed out. Take my word on it. We're all going to be okay, right?
True. Correct. Although the Washington Redskins, or team known as the Redskins, might not be okay, and that's a good thing.
Do I turn on my guy for a couple of minutes? What do you make? What is A-Rod doing?
I don't know.
A-Rod today was talking about, he just mentioned in an interview, he's trying to buy the Mets. He's, I'm sure he's a small investor in the Mets. This is, you know what? Now you see why he was such a weird guy to embrace, and he's a me guy. He is a me guy. Yeah. And now he's on the other side, and he's saying the players potentially need to embrace a salary cap in baseball. Like, A-Rod, where was your salary cap, bruh? You signed a $252 million deal with the Rangers. Then you signed a giant deal with the Yankees. You renegotiated it and completely fleeced the deceased Steinbrenner. Like, there was no cap for you. You got to make freaking $500 million. What do you mean there's a cap?
You got to make enough money to become a potential owner, and now you want to keep future players from making money because you might be an owner. It's just unbelievable. I mean, he's one step away from coming out and blaming his own contract and being like, some dude signed a $25 million a year contract. He was on steroids. He fooled everybody. We salary cap now. Yeah. Like, wait, what? It's you. You did this. He's amazing, but he keeps on doing it. And I think he's seeing, like I had referenced to you, ESPN said he can't do games as long as this, process is going on. So now he doesn't have a job. So now I think he's really trying to ingratiate himself to the owners because he's worried about, like, what does he do?
Yeah.
He's got no work.
So now he's going to buy in completely.
Yeah, he's got to. Because you had said the other day you don't think the owners would approve him because of, how the relationship they've had in the past. So what better way to ingratiate himself than to, be outspoken for something that they really want?
Yeah. It's like, hey, you know what? I'll kiss your ass a little bit. Don't recall that I was actually suing Major League Baseball one time to come back when I got suspended.
Yeah, let's forget about that little transgression.
Totally true from Connor. He's a strange cat. Me guy for sure. Just think of that weird photo in the mirror.
What about the weird mirror photo? What about the weird bathroom photo?
Yeah, what was the deal on that one again?
I don't even remember. I just remember he had a bathroom in a high rise with no curtains or anything on the window. And he was just in there doing his business. Just in front of an open window in a Manhattan high rise.
I look good taking a shit.
That's what he thought.
Right? He's all looking in the mirror. He's like, man, my ass looks tight.
So stupid.
Brady with the A-Rod came off like a moron. You can read that line.
It's good. I like it.
What's next? Casey Anthony asking for stricter child laws.
I forget some people listen audio only.
In the past, Casey? No.
No, not at all. She was not guilty.
That's right. The system said she was good to go. One last thing on A-Rod becoming an owner. Totally thought of you when I saw this tweet. This is the typical story that will just infuriate you. These goddamn bosses and CEOs, right? So February 4th, Macy's permanently closes 125 stores, 2,000 jobs cut. June 25th, 3,900 jobs cut. June 9th, CEO, $3.7 million bonus. 5 other executives, bonuses of about $1 million each. The stock has fallen 60% this year. And then we have to explain to people that the Macy's bosses, they're the baseball owners. They're the football owners. And I the lady at the makeup counter isn't exactly a direct correlation to, you name it. Give me a baseball player, right? Who's making $20 million a year. I understand. I get it. But it's still the baseball career, the baseball player's career is finite, and the owner's going to do whatever he can to suppress salaries and make money. And in the end, it's going to be all about him or her. And you get Macy's here like, hey, cut. We're struggling. Hey, where are the bonuses? Let's go.
It's unbelievable. And it infuriates me. First of all, like a lot of what is going on of people, like we understand people like have lost their job during this time. It is a really tough time. Unemployment is skyrocketing. There's a lot of terrible, terrible things happening, but people are really misdirecting the anger. Like really, really misdirecting the anger because you've got so many cases like this one. You've got so many cases like look around at how much more wealthy the billionaire class has gotten over the last 4 months.
This has
been a great time. Yeah, coronavirus has been a godsend.
It's been fantastic for the billionaire class. And you don't hear enough people talking about that to where like all this unemployment, people getting you realize and a lot of people work for small businesses. A lot of people are small business owners. I'm not talking about them at all. Like we need to find ways to make sure that they can stay in business, make sure they can make payroll and make their own expenses. Those things we need to find. But like some of the major corporations who are just getting richer and richer during this time when they could have just kept paying their employees to stay home. Like, hey, be safe, stay home. We're going to keep paying you for the next 4 or 5 months. Like, we'll take care of this. We'll take care of what's going on. Hey, guess what? My net worth might go from, 7.2 trillion to, 7.1 trillion. Oh, that's going to be real rough for me at the end of this. Like, and I, of course, I'm exaggerating on the financials there, but like, I might take a little bit of a hit as a billionaire, but I get to keep my employees safe and stay home and not have to worry about working. But then when they lay people off and they're not paying them, then you're like blaming the government. Like you shut us down. Like blame your boss who could have paid you, who could have easily paid you, instead of making an extra $1 billion during this time. It's unbelievable the misdirected anger that people have, and the fact that a lot of people are like, well, we're in a pandemic and I lost my health insurance. That's not acceptable. Yeah, you know what would be acceptable? If we had a better system where that wouldn't happen, where your health insurance wasn't tied to your job. Like, think a different way about these things. Like, put it into a different perspective. We have enough money to do these things, but you're blaming. It's unbelievable. Just go look how much money the richest 1% have made during this time. It is disgusting, and I don't know how people wouldn't be disgusted by it.
How they're missing it, right?
Yeah.
Furlough letters, and then as Brady says, the CEOs are like, "Oh yeah, we're taking a big pay cut," and then they'll get bonused on the back end.
Of course,
it'll be made.
Yeah, look how hey, you saved a lot of money in salary this year. Here's your extra $200 billion. Like,
right.
Okay.
Or the little guy gets completely furloughed, and I'm sorry, the CEO gets I'm going to take some time off, but everyone else is like 100%, nothing. You're out, zero. You may never be back. I mean, look at the way we're going to rehire here in town. Which who knows now? Who knows now? I guess we can address that. You've seen these rumors tonight, right? That another shutdown's coming.
Of course.
That we're in big trouble here.
No, just so people know, the federal government recommended Nevada shuts down.
Yep, you said that earlier. Yep.
The federal government recommended Nevada shuts down. Yep. So, it's a very tough decision that the state's going to have to make, but the federal government has recommended it. Yeah. Yes, exactly. It should not be that way. And the anger and this goes back to the sports that we've been talking about, where people are talking about baseball players and football players and basketball players and hockey players to a certain extent of, you guys are going to be fine. Why don't you just go in? Exactly, on that too. Why don't you just go in? You're going to make a bunch of money. Stop complaining. Just go in there. Like, the virus won't even affect you anyway. Like, why do we have to hear about this all the time? You realize that the owners are the ones that are going to make more money without taking the risk, right? Do people understand that part? Like, I don't hear anybody mentioning that when they start complaining about players and their concerns about safety. People are like, players are concerned about their safety. I'm concerned about my safety too. Like, okay, we get that. But you realize that the owners are going to make their money without actually taking any risk, right? You understand that? But yet we don't hear about that. It's unbelievable to me, the pass that that class gets. It's crazy.
So what do you think is going to happen? You think they're going to have like a full shutdown, except casinos?
Yeah.
Will everyone have to shut down?
That's the dilemma. That's the dilemma.
There's going to be pitchforks and torches in the street. And I understand where we are, But there's a lot of anger right now. Like, why didn't we just do it right the first time? Why did we have to be greedy and try to open up and get Memorial Day and 4th of July and scoop up as much money as possible that in the end really didn't help a whole lot of locals? And now we're going to shut down all the local stuff. I mean, it's amazing.
It's a really tough spot.
Yeah.
It's a really tough spot because, the casinos do have a lot of power, and the state government, and I'll just say Sisolak, was in a difficult position of what do you do? He shut down, which I think was the right move. I think it should have been shorter and just said everybody has to wear masks, and he took too long to do that part.
You know what, Adam?
People didn't do it.
You know what, Adam? I'm not. People on the ground are to blame partially, and you would have been, with a full mask mandate, there would have been weeks of kicking and screaming. But the problem with Sisolak here is that he did listen to casinos too much because they were like, oh, the optics of the mask are going to be bad. I mean, hell, we were hearing stories around the time they were going to reopen where employees at Caesars were like, oh, we're going to get in trouble if the employees wear masks. Like, it's not they don't want us to wear masks. So you know where they stood. And here's the problem. Like, I did my rant. I don't know, whatever it was. I forget. We're doing so many shows, right? But I did my rant. It's like, in the end, most politicians are the same. They can't be trusted to do the right thing because their number one goal is to stay in their gig or move to their next gig. So it's always about self-preservation. Now, if Sisolak was like, you know what? I don't care if I ever do anything again after being the governor of Nevada, then that decision would have been easy for him, right? I'm not listening to casinos. I know it's our vital industry, but it ain't the right thing to do. But he can't stand up to them because he needs their help down the road because he wants to continue in some other role in the future in politics. It's also why most people, when they go to vote, unless you really like whatever politician you're voting for, you need to find alternatives. And when you can, vote people out. Frankly, even if you like them, if you feel good enough about the opponent, get them out, send a message. You know what? You don't get to stay in office like some of these asshole senators for like 42 years because then their whole gig is about keeping the gig.
Right, but I think that makes it worse. What you're saying makes it worse because if we're going to do that, let's just take Nevada. I'll just take it because it's more accessible. It's easier to understand because it's at home for us. So if you were going to say that, right? It's good. You know what? If you want to wear that mask, fine. Wear it. It's dumb, but wear it, and at least you're wearing a mask. So just take Nevada for example. If you're going to say, hey, Sisolak is too beholden to the casinos, which is true of any politician in Nevada, you have to be. But he's too beholden to the casinos. We need to vote him out. That's fine. But he's going to, in the rest of his term, do everything he can to help the casinos and then go take a CEO job at a casino and make millions and millions of dollars. And like that's the problem with that theory of just vote him out. Well, then that makes people more corrupt to where they could be like, okay, well, I need to set myself up for what I'm going to do after this. So let me do a lot for this industry right now while I have a chance to, and then go work for them. Like that's where that whole theory. And I was arguing with our friend Gooch about this when he's like screaming about term limits fix everything. Well, they don't, because that just makes them jam in as much corruption as they can in a shorter period of time. And
you're right. Then they can find a soft landing spot with the people they benefited with, tens of millions of dollars. They can be the freaking CEO of Macy's. I love this comment. I don't want to be an ageist, but when you think about it, right? Anyone who's got parents who are in their 70s, you're like, all right, like, yeah, they're slowing down. Some of the shit they say, you take it with a grain of salt. And I know there are healthy, folks who are in their 70s and 80s. And I'm not saying you need to shut them down, but when you really think about the twilight of their existence and you're just trying to like help them to the finish line, and then you start looking at the ages like Brady's putting up with Pelosi and Biden and Schumer and McConnell, you're like, I don't listen to my fucking parents. And they're slightly younger than these people.
Yes. It's true.
And I don't get it. What a rigged shit system. One last comment before I want to get off the soapbox because we do this every night. Who had the comment earlier? Someone was saying earlier, if we did what we were supposed to do, we had closed down for a long time and we had masked up and cut down on how much we go out. And I know it would not have been easy, and we had a job. Both of us were working, Adam multiple jobs, so it's it's easy for me to say because I was drawing a check. But someone was saying earlier, we may be done with all of this in Nevada. Maybe it was like August 1st. Do you believe that with California and Arizona adjacent?
No.
Or do we have to go like down the path I mentioned about a month ago, especially with Arizona? Like, you got to put armed NHP at the border. You're not coming in the state. And we're not willing to do that. But I don't know that. I think we'd be in better shape right now.
Sure.
But I don't think this would be, we'd be like good to go, like 100% good to go.
No, we never will.
Yeah.
We never will, because open for us means letting the world in.
Yeah.
Like letting the entire world in. But when you say we could have been through this, yes, the country. If everyone in the country did what they were supposed to do, sure. Yeah, we could have been through it.
Yeah.
I mean, again, we didn't have to close. Like, we had to close for as long as we did because people wouldn't wear masks and because people wouldn't distance and do all the things they were supposed to do. We could have closed for a shorter period of time if everybody would have just been like, yeah, we're going to do the things we're supposed to do. Could have opened much sooner, and we could have handled it much better. But instead, we open, and people are like, now it's open. I'm going to do everything I can. I think I told this on the show. I'm not 100% sure. But I literally was having this conversation with, like, the weekend things opened. The weekend things started to open again. I was having this conversation with some people who are very anti-Sisolak, very pro-Trump on this whole thing. And they were complaining about things being closed. And they were like, just open everything. We understand we have to sit apart from each other. We understand there's differences. Just open. Just open. Just open. And I was like, okay. And then the next day things opened, and they the same group of people wanted to go out. And they go out. I go out with them. And I was like, I'm staying away from them. I was wearing a mask. They weren't, of course, because we didn't have to wear masks at the point.
By the way, throw in, not only were people who said open things up, will be responsible, not only were they irresponsible, but then they were also mocking and chiding those who were trying, including yourself.
No, I said I walked in. I had a friend in town. I didn't really want to go out one night. This is a different story. I had a friend in town, didn't really want to go out. Everybody was like, yeah, just come stop by. He's only in town for a night. I was like, okay, I'll stop by. I was wearing a mask. I walked in and just got relentlessly, like, they were like, oh, you fucking pussy with a mask on, but like standing over me, taunting me. I was like, I'm going. Because not because I can't take it, but like, what have you guys been doing? Like, I don't know where you've been. Like, clearly you don't believe in anything and you're not taking any precautions. I'm not staying around you people. And I left. But the story I was telling of these people saying, like, hey, we understand there's going to be differences. We just need to be open. Just open and we'll be fine. We'll wear masks. We'll sit apart. We walk into a restaurant. They're like, okay, you have to sit over here. And then the other party has to sit, 2 tables away or whatever. And yes, I'll stop being sheep, right? And they're like, and you can't have a menu. You have to do a QR code or whatever on your phone. And they were like, what? I don't get a menu? Like, okay, yes, this is why we're not open. This is why. Because you're complaining about it and you can't follow the simple procedures. This is why.
I got to say, Adam's been consistent on this, and he was screaming and yelling about it. And I know people in the audience were getting tired of it, but now we're spiking to record levels. The fucking assholes to the South in Arizona, that place is a bloodbath. California is all effed up. So, like, whatever, man. Whatever. And I'm tired of complaining about it, and I know what's coming. So, I mean, I don't think – I mean, you've been talking to people in college and pro football. Man, they're going to try with the NFL, but it ain't starting. There's not going to be training camp on the 28th. No. The season's not starting on time. They're going to delay it and push it back. College football, maybe the SEC tries it as like the Southern Conference, and they can do whatever they want. They're never going to believe this. It's always going to be there's more testing, and that's why the numbers are going up. But college football ain't happening. So
we've been careful saying it, I think, on the Daily Show, so we have more journalistic standards. But now that we're White Peach Roséing it at night, I mean, you're saying it, I'll say it too. But there's not college football's not happening.
Nope,
it's not happening. I'm telling you guys right now, it's not happening.
Even the SEC.
I mean, they could play on their own. That's something different. But right. Like, let's say Mountain West schools, they're not playing.
No.
And it sucks. But also, I think there could be an interest in the, I don't know how many players are going to sit out if it's in the spring, but we could have something in the spring, maybe.
God damn it. I know. I appreciate the compliment from the Whiskers, but yeah, I'm tired of talking about it, man. And like I said, I know what's coming, and I don't want it to be the case, but there's a reason we're doing these podcasts. I was like, I am not. Radio is going to be done. Like, I'm still doing this. We're going to find a way to do it, but hopefully, maybe we're overreacting now. I really hope we're overreacting now and panicking now. Yeah. Ray saying, "Where's the vaccine?" It's still going to take some time, dude.
And a bunch of people won't take it.
Don't even. Robert was just saying, your SO comes into idiots. She's an esthetician. I mean, every day she comes home and she's like, at least half her customers it's the pissing and moaning about the mask. So she told me the other day, she was like, some lady was going off and she's just like, stop, okay? We're not going to agree on this. I'm not doing politics. Just stop. And I was like, you're just going to lose a client? She's like, I couldn't take it anymore. It's every fucking day. And we're lucky. Like, I don't have to work with a mask. I sit at home all day. We go into the station. We have to wear a mask in and wear a mask out. Walk around the building. You wear a mask. We're in the studio without mask on. Like, this is dreamland. But anyone who's got to wear a mask all the time and then listen to these morons come and just pick fights and whine, it's like, just.
Can I tell you how? Okay, I mean, we talked about going to Mexico and going to the resort a couple weeks ago.
We're clearly venting here. I hope everyone is.
I mean, I talked about the safety protocols that were in place, which were phenomenal, but part of that is like the workers were. It was so. I felt so bad because, like, literally, it's hot as hell right now down there.
Yeah.
It was like 96 every day with like pretty high. You're on the water. I mean, you're basically on an island, very humid. And it was like, the guys that were like serving drinks at the pool had like huge, like protective gear on, gloves, mask, face shield, but were like so thrilled to just be working. They're like, okay, this is what we're doing today. This is how we're going to work. And they just did it. And it sucked. And you were looking at them like, man, this sucks. But they were like, this is what it takes for us to be open. For our economy to be open, for our country to be open, this is what it takes. And that's accepted. And then you move on.
By the way, Left Coast Mike, you realize what you're saying here, right? Anti-masker states should all be shut the fuck down. Don't matter.
Yeah, we're number 2.
We're one of the anti-masker states.
Yeah, we're the number 2 most anti-masking states.
I mean, that's the great thing. Here's the thing. I wonder in Arizona, Florida, Texas, some of the other states that really hit hard, like they're reading about other states and they're like, idiots. Right? Because you do realize people are looking at Nevada from the outside and they're like, Nevada. Morons. Like, we're not all morons. Some of us want to wear the masks. We want to open up. We don't want to close again.
People drive me nuts, man.
I love it. That Left Coast Mike. Oh, shit, that's right.
Yeah, us. Yes, we're the embarrassment. Arizona, us, Florida. It's us.
Yeah. All right, let's. We got to hit the elephant in the room. I know you were very concerned about this. You're like, we have to do it in the air. I'm like, now we don't. Most people have no. This will be very deep divey, but he's kind of a cult figure on this show, and for some reason, Jared hates him. But
apparently JVT does too.
Apparently, I don't know, like half the building at the LA Times does. Yeah. What is going on with our boy Arash?
Yeah,
he's one of the nicest guys we know.
Not me. He's my enemy. My nemesis.
The LA Times staff, there's like a friggin' uprising against Arash. They don't like what he does. They've been struggling with his breach of ethics for time, for a good amount of time now. There was bitching and moaning when he got hired. Can you see their side of things? Will you turn on your guy Arash?
I hate him. We're arch enemies. What are you talking about?
Explain what the allegations are and why there's a lot of gray area here.
Well, first, let me say this. I'll explain because a lot of people that watch this are also listeners to the show. Some of our most hardcore listeners. The reason I wanted to talk about this tonight and wanted to talk about it earlier, even though we don't know all the details yet, we know enough. The reason I wanted to talk about it is because I don't want to make it obvious that we're avoiding it. Obviously, Arash is a friend of mine. We've had him on quite a bit. We joke that we're enemies, but we are friends. And I did not want to have our radio show today and have this go on tonight and not address something that is obviously going on with somebody that we know, that we've worked with, that we talked about.
We're not going to be. I saw who was Levitard was accused of protecting sort of Masvidal and his craziness with QAnon, and even more so, I guess a lot of people felt like Levitard didn't go after Steven Jackson because he's a friend of the show. We will, with the facts we have, we will go after Arash. Well, at least we'll address the story. I don't know if we're going after him, but we'll tell the story.
So I think the first thing to understand about this story is that this is very, very, very much old media versus new media battle. That's what this boils down to. It also boils down to, and it's going to sound like I'm taking Arash's side. I'm not. I'm just kind of describing. There's definitely a jealousy aspect to this story. So Arash got hired as the sports columnist, the page 2 columnist, the main columnist at the LA Times in the sports section. In the media world, in the newspaper world, that is a massive job. This is a legendary position that some of the all-time greats have held. This position is held to a ridiculously high standard in the journalism world. And
would you say at lots of papers because columnists never stop working. They never die. Even if they start to, their skills erode, they will stay on forever. The paper's afraid to get rid of them. Would you say there's generally a jealousy with the staff versus the new columnist at a lot of papers at the beginning? Or is it that Arash is not coming from a customary background and he's more, internet based when he came in?
Well, I think that's it. And I think because this position in particular at the LA Times is such is held in such revere, and some of the great writers ever have held the job, as I said, legendarily, Jim Murray was just phenomenal. And so that's kind of the standard there. So when you get hired to this job, there is a different level of responsibility. Now, the LA Times, when they hired Arash, went in a bit of a different direction. Arash, and I'll just be honest about it, I think Arash is a good writer, and I don't think this would offend him. I don't know. He's not the greatest writer of all time. What he is really, really, really good at is social media, what people want to see, writing the good columns, and developing really good relationships with some huge, huge people in the sports and entertainment world, and kind of telling the stories in a different way. That's what he does. And so when the LA Times decided to hire him, that's the direction they went in. And I think a lot of people in the sports department were not happy that they decided to go in that direction. That is we're going for clicks. We're going for, people to be interested. We're going for a guy that's going to be on TV every day, that's going to be on radio shows every day, that's going to be on Instagram and Twitter every day, and just marketing himself and us every single day. And that's what they went for. And I think a lot of people were not happy with that at the time. And so there's been some resentment bubbling. Now, a couple of things have come up while he's been there. There has been some accusations that he's way too friendly to sources and way too friendly to organizations, and basically just kind of did their PR for him as a columnist, which is definitely a no-no, but it's also, again, part of how he has built some of these relationships. That's why he is who he is and the level that he has reached. And so for you as a sports staff to get upset at that, that's what you were bringing in. There also was the very, very strange plagiarism accusation, which in my world, it's the ultimate taboo, the ultimate no-no. You can't do that. But we have to realize the person that he was accused of plagiarizing is himself. So the accusation of plagiarism is that he wrote a column about watching March Madness at the Cosmo Sportsbook and the Cosmo March Madness setup 2 years ago when he was with ESPN. And then he wrote one last year when he was with the Times. And one of the paragraphs is very, very, very similar.
Yeah.
Where he probably took, the paragraph from his old column, plugged it in, and just changed a bunch of words. Not a bunch, a few. And it's a very similar paragraph. So the accusation of plagiarism is that he kind of used his old work and recycled it, which not good, but certainly not the most egregious offense that you've ever heard of. I think the bigger things, it's more the friendliness of sources and relationships, and a lot of stuff about, hey, you tweet about the Cosmo all the time. Well, he loves staying at the Cosmo. He talks about it all the time. He did it when he was with ESPN too. Like, you knew what you were getting when you hired him again. So I think the anger is at the sports editor for making the hire. It's a jealousy of Arash, who went from a kind of a sports media celebrity to a massive like entertainment celebrity, because like Arnold Schwarzenegger wanted to tell his story, Inside Edition wanted to tell his story, all these huge athletes. It started with Kobe Bryant making a comment when he was still alive about like how great Arash looked, and he's told that story before, and like he's telling these stories on all these massive shows. So exactly, but it's not the paper that's mad. That's the other thing. So I guess I maybe didn't phrase that part well enough. It's the rest of the sports staff is not happy with him. I will say I had an encounter with a sports writer at the LA Times about 6 months ago, and we were having a cool conversation. And at one point, I actually said like, "Oh, I'm actually friends with Arash. Hang out quite a bit." And the attitude turned completely.
Really? Yeah.
It was like, "Oh, okay, well, whatever." And I was like, "Okay, that's weird." And so that's always kind of stuck in my. That's always kind of stuck in my mind. Of, wow, I guess there's some resentment there. There's some anger. And again, I explained why. Like, it's absolutely old media versus new media. And this is a conversation that happens every single day in every single newspaper around the country. It happens at our paper. It's, hey, like, this is the way we used to do things.
Yep.
How much do we adapt to what the world is now and go away from the standards of what a newspaper is? We haven't done that much. But like, how much do you get away from that?
It's a tough call. We mentioned it on the air. It's the whole editorial versus making money. And most importantly, like, how are we going to stay in business? How do we stay in business? Because you're right. The ethics are really important, and upholding standards of when you got into the biz in the 80s or 90s, really important. But as a boss, I mean, I would like, I look at both sides because, yeah, I think folks know I do a show, but I'm also involved in pretty much everything, right? So, but I do sales, right? So I have a unique position when salespeople come, and I'm like, hey, most hosts are going to be like, yeah, you're getting really, kind of overboard here, man. There's a line between the two of us. There really isn't anymore. And as the boss at the LA Times, and I don't have all the facts on this, and a lot more could come out that could soil the name of Arash. But if I were a boss there, and it's one of these other writers coming up, an older writer, like, dude, what the fuck are you bringing to the paper?
Yeah.
Like, what's like direct numbers? What are you bringing?
I will say,
how are we making money off of you? Like, it was a great point someone said earlier. You may not like it, and I don't know what Arash has with the Cosmopolitan. I have no idea. I can tell you this: whatever he did have, if he had anything, I give the guy a lot of credit. He didn't give a shit about the relationship when he walked through the casino and showed everyone with a mask off. All these anti-maskers or people who just didn't even know you should be wearing a mask. Like, that wasn't good for business for the Cosmo, but it was good for business for the LA Times, wasn't it?
Yeah. Well, and I think the argument that some of the people at the LA Times would make is that it was good for Arash.
Okay.
And traditionally,
well, let me jump in though. Let me jump in. God, I don't want to be mean.
No, but let me say this: if you think about it,
because I got to bring up again. It's the columnist. Truly, do you think most people watching the talking head shows? God damn it, I can never remember the name. What's the one with Reali?
With all the
writers? Yeah, around the horn. Do you think the folks who the backbone of that early were newspaper writers?
Yeah.
Do you think outside of about 10% of the viewers even know where they work? And I will not mention names. I'm not going to say that the person works at the LA Times. I got to tell you, the delivery on TV, because everyone can't do TV and everyone can't do radio. There are times when, because we're talking about Arash being self-serving, there are times when newspaper people go on TV. That ain't good for the paper. What I'm seeing and hearing is not good for the paper. It's barely understandable. It's borderline illiterate in terms of the way they're speaking. Sorry, I know that's mean, but there are certain people who should not be doing TV. So what? That is that a self-serving side gig, or is that just for the goodness of the paper? Because if it's for the good of the paper, then guess what? Don't take the money. Do it for free.
And I will point out the paper is kind of like that because, as you said, they don't really know, but all of the columnists would always have the paper name right behind them. Like they would sit in front of the figurehead. So it would be advertising, and they would get their advertising up there.
And you're right. At times they would actually have a whole banner up.
Yeah, that's what they would do. But so what I'm getting at with Arash though, so there is an old, like 20 years ago, that what he does would not fly, and not only because there's no social media, just because, like I said, it's a different type of journalism. But when some of these older, newspaper type people at the times are upset, good one. When they're upset, what they're saying is, "Hey, you're promoting yourself." But in this day and age, you get people watch that video and then they're like, "Oh, that's Arash Markazi put out the video," and then people are like, "Oh, that's the guy that works for the LA Times." Like it's all part of building the brand. It's all part of bringing viewers in. It's all part of bringing eyeballs in. There's people that never have seen the LA Times in their life, and they're like, "Oh, that's the columnist in the LA Times." Like, you're building your brand and the paper's brand. Like that's part of what it is. But that was not that was thought of as egregiously wrong 20 years ago. Like, it was only about the paper.
Right.
Getting all these. It was only about the paper, and you're only about your job, and nothing. Tim Kalishaw, that was good. That was going to. So it's just a different world, and those people that are kind of stuck in the past, like I said, it's jealousy, because if they were in that position, they would probably do the same thing, and two, they're like, well, this is not how newspapers are. Well, this is a new era. Like, newspapers aren't what they once were.
Oh my God!
This is a whole new thing.
Can you imagine running that by people at whatever paper, and if you said, "Hey, our writer has influencer status,"
yeah,
they'd freaking blow their top.
Yeah. So it's the battle between old and new. It's the battle between the jealousy of people who are not in that position and want to be in that position. There's a lot, and I'm not 100% defending Arash in this situation. There's some of the things that are I haven't seen all the parts. Like, there's things that are questionable that need to be talked about, that need to be kind of sorted out, I think, for sure. But I think in the end, it's people not understanding where media has gone and where it needs to go, and the places that it still needs to get to, and what is it? And papers are doing this. They're in this really constant battle of 10, 15, 20 years ago, it was, here's the facts, here's the facts, here's the facts, here's the facts. And now, if you do that, nobody's going to go to your paper, because if I break some story about the Raiders, I write a really good story about something about the Raiders, and I break it and I put it out there, there's 5 other people that are just going to read my story and rewrite it and put it out as their own. My work, a breaking story that's really well written, is not what it once was. It doesn't mean anything anymore. There's got to be something more to it. You've got to have the personality to it. You've got to have all these other great angles and aspects to what you do as a media person. It's just a different world, and a lot of people that have been in the business a long time can't figure that out. And it's going to be a lot of struggles and battles until we get to that point where everybody kind of realizes where we've gone.
Yeah. I'm just not objective on this. I get worked up with as someone said earlier, it's just the, people stuck in the past, media people stuck in the past.
Yeah.
If you knew how hard columnists from the past and even radio hosts from the past actually worked as compared to what you have to do today, you'd laugh. And their resistance to work. I mean, I can't tell you 10 years ago, I can't tell you how many radio people are when Twitter was starting to, take off, and whatever other social media platforms at the time. It wasn't MySpace, so we don't need MySpace jokes, but their resistance, I'm not doing that. It's ridiculous.
I have to work 24 hours a day now.
Yeah.
I heard that from people.
Yeah.
You know what? Yeah, you do.
Yep.
You do.
There's all this new competition coming. And the other thing is, there are tens of thousands of people around the country, if not hundreds of thousands, that will do what you do. I don't think as well. And they have no risk. but they will do it for free. That's what you're competing with. So yeah, I want to find out more what's going on with Arash, but
well, I'll tell you, it's a constant battle. Even for me, like, there are people around, like expressing opinions about things and like doing a radio show for a journalist would be completely frowned upon and completely denigrated at some point. Now there's like there are people and executives at the RJ that have asked me, like, how did you build such a following on Twitter? How did you get such active Twitter followers? Why do people care what you say on radio? All these things. And I'm like, because I'm actually a person, I express my opinions. And they're like, well, we're not supposed to do it as journalists. Like, yeah, I get it, but you can't have it both ways. Yeah. Like, you can't.
Well, and the other thing that so many newspaper people have difficulty with, they were used to telling the story and giving their opinions and almost getting no feedback outside of emails and some letters. Like, whether you like Adam or not, Adam will sit there and take a freak. He will get brutalized, and
I'll go back to people.
There are a lot of people who are not willing to do that. Yeah. But especially if you're in the opinion business and you're giving opinions and then you won't court opinions and answer opinions, then what are we doing? There's a good question up here or a good comment from Ray, and then we'll wrap things up. Ray was saying, I don't think people outside of the newspaper really care about any of the things Arash is accused of. Is that also something the LA Times has to calculate here? They're like, maybe we're going to have some people on the staff who they're just not traditional. And they bring in an audience that may read some of our stuff, but they don't care about that audience doesn't care about ethics or a copy and paste or basically rewriting a charity press release. They don't care. So who are we trying to please? The 60+ crowd who are going to be gone and might not follow the paper much? Who are we trying to get?
We're going to go, and it goes back to the battle, right? So what you're saying, I think, is absolutely true, right? I think people don't. This came from inside the newsroom. This was inside the sports department of people getting upset, and again, a lot of it, I've said it before, jealousy and everything else. But it's just a constant battle and there is something to be said about newspapers still maintaining that paper of record, the voice of authority of, hey, this is how we do it. When it's in these pages, it's true. We're not going to get into this, blogosphere game, and we're not going to get into like all these other, speculative Twitter accounts, those sorts of things. We are going to be where you go for the truth all the time. And when it's in these papers, it's true. And balancing that with trying to build this new audience and branch out into new areas and get to places where people are interested in. Like that is a constant battle that is going to be difficult to resolve, and it might not be resolved for a long time because there are still newspaper people that are like, no, this is how newspapers do it. We're not a blog, we're not a website, we're not a Twitter account. We are a newspaper, and this is how newspapers handle things. Well, if you're not getting people interested in what you're writing, does it matter? That's the question. That's something that we have to confront in our industry, and clearly here in LA, it's a real battle that they're going to have to figure out. And I don't know how it's going to end.
Adam, you do both. So what do you think who's worse, old school radio or old school newspaper?
Well, so I actually, I love the radio business. I love the radio industry, but I do think old school radio is worse.
Really?
Yeah, only because, well, I guess, you kind of made the point that old school newspaper was kind of lazy too. Like you just type your story and then you're done. It's over. But like old school radio to me is, well, the Golden Knights lost last night. That was a rough one. What do you think? What do you think? What do you think? And just taking calls. And like, okay, I took calls for 2 hours. Like now my show's over. And that was just so bad. And then the debates about all-star teams and Hall of Fames and just the standard arguments over and over again. Like that was horrific. And I guess that maybe just, personal preference of having like some, reverence for the newspaper people of old, just like I feel you probably have reverence for the radio people of old. But I just think there was something very special about newspapers in the past, and I think radio was just like a very primitive medium of like trying to figure out how to get to a place where we are now.
Right. All right, good stuff. Little, as someone said earlier, very inside baseball about the newsroom and all that. But
hopefully it was interesting.
Well, he is a friend of the show.
And it's something I know about, the inner workings of newsrooms. So I don't think many people do. Yes, agreed.
Comment on this.
Agreed. I'll say it for you. You're correct.
The problem is they're slashing budgets, and I mean, I rant about this all the time. They're having people do weekend radio shows in a lot of cases who are not radio people. You know?
Yeah.
So, which is stupid because there's a big audience driving around listening to weekend sports radio.
Yeah, if they don't have any options.
If Arash got fired, does he make an immediate recovery with another company where they're like, we get it, we don't care?
The short answer is yes.
Yeah, I think so too.
The more cryptic answer is there may have already been some emails being exchanged of like, let's see what happens here.
Yeah, but we should say when he says the LA Times columnist job was a dream job,
he's correct. He's not lying.
It's not something that he's like, you know, fuck him. Like, you just piss away. That is, again, I push back on you guys with newspapers, but there are certain positions and certain papers where you're like, my God, that's the pinnacle. May not be the pinnacle forever, but he's at the pinnacle right now. So I hope it all works out. And oh God.
What? Somebody say something?
No, just.
Oh.
Maybe. Trees and ODB saying even if they had bigger budgets, weekend sports radio would still suck ass. If they had CBS Radio National actually does a good job of employing. They use local radio hosts, you know, to fill. Now they all can't do national in terms of like the scope, but at least they're radio people. Just filling in with writers who don't do much radio, and then TV people is just it's not good. It ain't good. All right. I thought we were done like 25 minutes ago, but the Arash story is an interesting one. We'll track it and appreciate it. That was awesome with Frank. So hopefully we can sign Frank to a deal. We can sign him to the long-term contract of 0.
Hope the newsroom doesn't revolt.
Right, Brady. I do an hour and 55 minutes, and I'm not even pimping the Meetup Vegas. Yeah, if you're new to the podcast, we're sort of backed by Meetup Vegas. So go up to Meetup Vegas. I got to get the right logos too. There's Meetup Vegas logos, but it's Meetup, like it's spelled here, Vegas. Go check it out. You know, you don't have to go to the grocery store. The meat's quality. I don't know when the hell I'm going to get through the box that I got. I got a 21-pound box of meat. So it's good stuff. What I've had so far is awesome. But you get money off if you use the code Cofield. And again, like we were just talking about, budgets and weekend radio, and cuts all over the place. Like the fact that someone is advertising with us means that we hope, you know, just like Adam hopes, you know, you throw a couple bucks at the RJ, you get through the paywall. These are the kind of things that keep us on the air. I know I'm like groveling now. I'm like, please. When there's no football, Meetup Vegas could be the savior, but go check it out. You don't have to buy anything, but go check it out. See if you like it. I think the stuff is good. It's at meetupvegas.com. And good reminder. I know, Brady. Brady said it. I'm going to eat my way. I'm going to keep myself employed, but I may die of a heart attack. But I'm going to enjoy doing it. High cholesterol. I laugh at that. Yes, you need to get a weekend local show on ESPN. Left Coast Mike will explain to you how you do that. Not easy. You may need to find a meetupvegas.com like sponsors. Yeah. I'm running out of gas. I'll see you guys. We'll see you tomorrow at 3:00.